Well, welcome to this edition of the Model 3 Owners Club show. My name is Kenneth Bocor.
I'm Trevor Page. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We've got a great show to go through today. But let's start by making some announcements.
Well, we have a little bit of house
this,
cleaning to talk about. And Ken and I have been discussing this for some time now. And we're thinking that we're going to change the name of the show. Not the name of the channel. Nothing's changing. Mm-hmm. The content is not going to change. But we've been having some discussions for a while now, and we feel that by using the Model 3 Owners Club name as part of the show is pigeonholing us a little bit because we want to grow the channel. We want to grow beyond just talking about Tesla. Now, if you've been watching the show long enough, you understand we don't cover just Tesla. We've been talking about EVs the whole time, other cars, different charging networks, and a whole other things. So we really want to grow the channel. We want to do a lot more community outreach, and we just feel by using the name Model 3 Owners Club as part of the show name that it's hindering our ability to grow the channel. So we're going to name the channel a little differently. Not the channel, the show name a little differently. So we'll do that probably for the next episode. Yeah.
Next episode, we'll have a new bumper, and you'll see the new show name there. And again, as Trevor says, the structure of what we do is going to remain the same.
Yeah,
I think
changed.
What this will give us access to is more environments where it may have been prohibitive before for us to get into, dealing with other manufacturers. The car show was a great example where we're starting to now see more models hit the streets, and that's just the floodgates are opening, right?
Yeah.
Over the next 3 to 5 years, it's just going to be an astronomical number of vehicles, electric vehicles that'll be on the street, and we want to be able to get access to those, to cover those, and cover the news that makes people interested in looking at EV adoptions from all kinds of different ways. So renaming the show, rebranding the show itself, it'll still be on the channel, the forum, all those other things that Trevor is running with. Nothing's changing there. It's just this particular show will change the name and be able to bring you more content in the future. That's our goal.
So that's what
hopefully you're excited for us, because we're excited for us.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be great.
We appreciate all of our viewers. Keep watching.
Please.
Don't change your subscription. Nothing's going to change as far as the content, just the name of the show.
Yep.
So anyways, let's get in. We have some Model 3 updates.
Yeah, we've got a few Model 3 updates. Again, I mean, they're now in hitting the streets in larger numbers, and there's probably videos coming out every 2 days now on Model 3s about stuff. So you'll be able to find a lot of content out there that we don't necessarily need to cover. But we are tracking the numbers, and the numbers are looking pretty promising. We look at our source at Inside EVs. They've been really accurate in predicting the numbers, and it's hard for Tesla because we don't get accurate numbers until their financial calls. So we people have to kind of predict a little bit, but it looks like for the month of February that Tesla was able to deliver. This is not in transit or manufactured, but this is actual customer deliveries of 2,485, and that's up from January, which was 1,875. So it's good to see the progress. Doesn't look like they're at their 1,000 a week, as far as they might be maybe producing that, but it doesn't seem they're delivering that. And we talked about potentially constraints the gap between actually making them and delivering them. It's going to be a challenge for them to be able to deliver.
I'll mention this one thing. One of the things we found out, of course, now that general deliveries have actually started, that they're not starting just in California. They're all over the place. And we've seen quite a number actually out on the East Coast, like in Florida and New York and Massachusetts, those kind of things.
Yep.
And I think a lot of it has to do with the delivery times, because the end of the quarter is coming up again. So I think a lot of it's trying to get these cars kind of in production and delivered out to the furthest regions so they can count those as deliveries. So we'll know more probably towards mid to late April when they do their financial call again. We'll get a pretty good idea what's going on.
Amazing what happens with companies at the end of quarters. This magic happens.
Yeah.
But it's a promising sign. So that means year to date, in the first 2 months of this year, they've delivered over 4,000 Model 3s, 4,360. Also, as you reported, and you did a quick video, we're now seeing demonstration units, not really drivable. You can't test drive them, but units in Canadian stores in Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver.
Not Montreal, not yet.
Not Montreal yet? Okay,
no.
coming soon.
Yeah, it's coming soon.
Okay.
Both locations got cars, so you can definitely go in to check them out. Tesla is still not doing test drives yet anywhere on the Model 3, so if you're looking to test drive one of the cars,
Not even in the U.S.?
Not even in the U.S.
I wasn't sure about that.
So I was going to say, if you're looking to test drive a Model 3, right now your best guess is try and locate an owner in your area. If you're on our forum, we have lots and lots of forum members who've taken deliveries of
Yeah.
the cars, so you can reach out. Each one of our user profiles has a location where they're located, so you can probably reach out to them and ask them to see if they'll help out. For the most part, people are pretty good about letting people take a look at the cars.
People love showing off their cars.
Oh, yeah.
It's just human nature. It's the way we are.
Actually, speaking of which, and before I forget, I think about 2 weeks ago I was out at the Vaughan Mills Mall here in the Toronto area, and I decided to supercharge and just go into the mall for a little while. And I had somebody approach me, a young family, and I wanted to say a little shout out, and I think I remember your name is just a young fella. His name is Naresh, and I'm sorry if I didn't get your name right. But a young family, and him and his dad and his mom were there, and they said that they watched the show and they really appreciate everything that we do. So thank you for watching and stuff. And I gave them a little tour of the Model X and took them a little drive and stuff, and we took a good picture of them. We'll put it behind us. So anyways, just want to give a little shout out to that young family. It was quite nice to see them.
Nice. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing people come out in malls and parking lots going, is that an EV? And how do you like it? And start asking questions. And that's where adoption and interest starts.
Yeah.
So absolutely. To finish up on the model, in this part of the Model 3 update. So also there's been some notices go out for people that have orders, estimating Canadian deliveries to start in the second half of this year if you're looking to get a long range with premium interior model. First production, I should use that term, correct? Or a standard range with all-wheel drive model. Those apparently are going to be available for order completion in the second half of this year. Now, second half means it could be July or it could be December. So you take your pick on when that happens.
Never know.
Sometime between those months, Canadian delivery should start occurring. I would suspect in the major cities, because that's probably the bulk of the orders.
Yes.
Major cities. Now the standard range, because a lot of people that are wanting, I really want to buy that $35,000 US car, because you know it can factor it into Canadian costing, and you've done some updates on the pricing, so we know what that is. Doesn't look like we're going to see that up here till at least calendar year 2019 sometime.
No, Tesla's really pushing for the higher profit margin cars because they need the money.
And that makes perfect sense. So as you know, if we hear anything else, they'll be posting on the forums and we'll provide updates as well. But that's, I mean, you'll get your email before probably we hear anything anyway with your updates. Now, there were some software updates specifically to the Model 3 that came out. There was one involving the backup camera. Do you want to talk about that, Trev?
Well, the updates are still, we're getting almost weekly reports of software updates because Tesla is putting all of their eggs in the development cycle of the Model 3, trying to get that software. Elon even tweeted about it that, pretty much everybody in the software engineering teams down there are heavily involved in trying to get Model 3 up to par because the software is still beta in a lot of ways. I did get a report that there is going to be a software update, and they didn't tell me when, but it will finally enable the heated seat in the back of the car. Someone snuck me an image of the user interface, and it's on the HVAC screen and stuff. I'll put it behind us. So again, the interface could change, but it's definitely coming. So it's looking promising, and yeah.
Which will be a needed feature when you're at minus 35 degrees in Vaughan Mills.
I think we're done with
4 in
30,
the morning.
I think we're done with 35 for a
We're
while.
done with that. Exactly. Were there any other significant updates? Just that, right? I think, right?
Yeah, that's the major thing. Like right now, it's mostly bug fixes, trying to get the stability up.
Okay. One thing we did want to bring up, and I think you're going to get access to one shortly, but I think you tweeted this or mentioned it on the forum, is that there's a company that's coming out with a charger pad for the Model 3. So we know that you could put in the premium edition with the upgraded console, you can plug in your phones manually through a plug to charge up to 2 phones in the front console. But there's a wireless version of that, right? Third market?
I think
party market.
Since the advent of the Model 3, I think this is probably the number one thing that people ask about because, let's face it, most of the modern phones that are available from both Android and Apple these days have wireless charging capabilities built in. And I saw that as a missed opportunity as far as Tesla was concerned. So this company is coming out with a rubber mat that replaces the one that's in the Model 3 in the little compartment where you put your phones. And they're going to have a single coil and a dual coil version, and work with a variety of different manufacturer phones. Pricing is supposed to start at $99 US. Supposed to be available sometime in April. I was in touch with them. They said they were going to send me some kind of sample to look at sometime this month. I really got to reach out to them and just remind them again. So if I do get a hold of one, I'll do a video on it, and we'll give you an idea of what it's like. They've also told me that they're going to be working on a version for the Model S and the Model X, but it's not a priority right now. So we'll keep you posted.
Great, good stuff. Well, let's stick now with the charging theme for the next few minutes of the show and give you some updates on what's going on in the charging world. CHAdeMO, well, we don't talk about a lot so far, but it is really the largest standard in the world today when you look at number of installations of both chargers and vehicles that are out there. There's been some development, and there is continued development in that standard. A 1.2 version has been published. The specs have been announced, which will give you charging up to 200 kilowatt or 400 amp. And they're also working on a 2.0 version, which will give you double that to 400 kilowatt or 1,000 volts. I'm not sure why they didn't give it in amps, but anyway, that's what it was. And those specs are to be released mid this year. And, just to show that there's been, in 2017, there was a 50% growth in Europe for CHAdeMO and 30% for the rest of the world, giving over almost 18,000. Actually, if you combine the two, it's well over 23, almost 24,000 units that are out there from charging perspective, or chargers, and over 1 million compatible plugins that can take advantage of CHAdeMO. So, it's continuing to grow, and we don't see that going away anytime soon. Mm-hmm. So, good for that. And also on that front, some numbers came out about a week or so ago that of course, Tesla hit the 300,000 cars produced mark worldwide. And also Nissan. So both of those companies surpassed 300,000 cars worldwide, and they're the only two electric vehicle manufacturers to do that, which I think is fairly significant. Now, Tesla's done it in a less time than Nissan has. They started in 2012. Tesla did with 4 models, right? The Roadster, the S, the X, and now the Model 3. Nissan's, I think their claim is that they've done it really with one model, with the Leaf, starting in 2010. And but they also, of course, have a fleet delivery van. It's called the NV200. They have an all-electric version of that van, which has sold about 15,000 units. So if you add that into what Nissan's done, then they are the number one battery electric vehicle manufacturer in the world. So they do by numbers surpass Tesla. And I'm not pointing this out as a slam against Tesla or one's better than the other. I'm just pointing out facts that there are companies that have really put a lot into the EV world, and Nissan is one of them, and we need to recognize that fact. And now, of course, the fire has been lit and everybody else is trying to catch up.
Yeah, in the next 3 to 4 years, we're going to see a lot of activity. I should mention, though, too, that, of course, for those in the U.S. that are asking all the time, when is Tesla going to hit that 200,000th car delivered in the U.S., we still expect that to, looking more and more likely now. It's going to be happening sometime in the second quarter of this year, so sometime towards the end of June. And, this latest information about, Tesla trying to push the production of the Model 3 up and delaying S and X is one of the explanations as to trying to make sure that the Model 3 production numbers are up to a level so that and Elon said this before in a tweet, that they said that they could potentially do a revenue shortfall in a quarter in order to do the right thing, which is trying to get as many people to be able to qualify for the full tax credit. I should mention again...
U.S. tax credit.
Exactly. And I should mention again, the federal tax credit does not get immediately cut off. It starts a phase-out period that lasts 1 year. So once they hit that the 200,000th car, then they have 2 more quarters where people could get the car and still qualify for the maximum of $7,500 tax credit. So I think a lot of this stuff is kind of weighing heavy on them and stuff, but it is an explanation. Tesla said that they've seen an increased demand on the S and the X. I know that's true. But there are some other theories that are at play there. We're not going to cover them all in the thing, but I just wanted to throw that out there because, we're going to get the comments.
So if that starts, then let's say by the end of June, they hit their 200,000 delivery in the U.S., then July 1st would kick off the start of the phase out. So it would be July till December. You'd still qualify for the full amount. And then the following quarter, or is it quarter or 2 quarters?
It's
half, right?
It's half of that.
So then from January to end of June 2019, you would get $3,750, half of that amount.
And then it gets cut again.
And then it gets cut again. So it's still, in the entire calendar year of 2019, you would get something.
Yeah.
Which is good. So it's a slow phase out. Excellent. Part of the adoption, of course, for for people getting to the EVs is looking at costs. And one of the things that are driving costs down is lithium battery pricing. So all the EV vendors have deployed their cars with lithium batteries, and everybody's trying to get to a magic number through economies of scale. And to put this in perspective, so the current pack pricing right now is, and this is through a Bloomberg study that came out recently, is about $209 per kilowatt hour. And now that number may seem high, but it's down from only a year ago, almost a quarter, about 24%, which is pretty phenomenal. I mean, we know tech advances rapidly, but we are seeing that as well in the battery industry. And that's about 1/5 of what it was in 2010. So when that first Nissan Leaf rolled out in 2010, batteries are really expensive, 1/5 or 5 times higher than they are today for the pack. Now, it's expected that by 2025, and that could come earlier or could be a little later, but I think 2025 is a fair estimate, that we'll see that magic number of $100 USD per kilowatt hour or below, trying to get below that. And in our opinion, we've talked many times about tipping points and things like that in the industry, and that will really be a significant event where we should see cost parity happen at that point. And what we mean by that is that, a battery electric vehicle will be available for the same sort of range, same amenities and options as a regular ICE car at about the same price. And that will help spur adoption.
It's important, yeah, because once you take the total cost of ownership of the car, because a lot of people don't factor that in a lot of ways when they buy a car, because most people's mentality is, what's this thing going to cost me to drive it off the lot today? Yep. But with an EV, you have like electricity rates you have to deal with. It's so much less than gas. Your maintenance is a lot lower. So if you actually do the math and you figure all that in, the tipping point could come even a little bit earlier.
I think it could be earlier too.
Even if you don't reach that magical price point, because I think what a lot of people are talking about here is the cost parity as far as the drivetrain is concerned, not even factoring in total cost of ownership. So yes, I'm in agreement that once the drivetrain costs come down on parity, it's basically game over for most people. I mean, you'd be crazy not to even look at an EV.
That's right.
Now, the only problem, of course, is that we need more product in the showrooms. That's the biggest
and that's
point.
Coming full steam.
Well, 2020, as they say, right? So
that's the magic, and we'll talk a little bit about that coming up. Staying with the charging theme, we wanted to just re-bring up the Ionity ultra-fast charging network has really kicked off in Europe. We talked about this a few months ago, that it's a charging network jointly built by BMW, Mercedes, Ford, and VW in Europe. It's really squarely aimed at Tesla's supercharging network to compete against that, and they're planning 400 stations across Europe. Starting, these are DC fast charging starting at 150 kilowatt hour rates. Then increasing to 350. They've already worked on the first 20 units or 20 locations last year, and then they'll deploy a total of 100 stations this year by the end of 2018, and then the remaining 300 by the end of 2020, so for another 2 years. So and roughly, from what I understand, it's about 6 charge points per site. So to give them mathematically chargers per site, so give them around 2,400 charge points for that area, covering full breadth of Europe. And you'll probably throw the map in the back there while we're talking about it, but pretty large. Now, to compare this to Tesla's current supercharger, they already environment, they have 400 stations already deployed. They're currently, though, rated at the current spec at 145 kilowatt hours. But of course, Tesla plans to double that to 800 by 2020. They've also talked about upgrading to Supercharger version 3, which we don't have any specs on.
I think Elon was alluding the Supercharger version 3 was more mega chargers for the semi-trucks, not necessarily for the cars.
Okay, because I thought mega chargers would be different on top of that.
I think that's what he was alluding to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll keep our eye on this.
If it changes,
see what
great,
out.
But I think that's what he was talking
So there may be something coming for them, but that's good. So what it means is that you've got lots of choices, whether it's Tesla or non-Tesla vehicles, that there are, and this is just one network that we're talking about here, the Ionity. There are all kinds of other networks in place today, and that will continue to grow.
Yeah, one of the common refrains that I get on Twitter, of course, when people talk about other EVs is the lack of a charging network. It's not entirely true. There are a lot of other charging networks. It's just the supercharger network gets so much media attention that people have it in their minds as it's the only one. Now, the supercharger network is really frictionless because there's no payment on the unit or cards to use or whatever. I mean, Tesla has that all figured out through their Tesla account. But you got some people that say, well, the superchargers are free. Well, they're only free if you buy an S or an X, especially with the referral code. On the Model 3, you're going to have to pay for it. And all these other units that are out in the market, yeah, there's some that are free. Other
Some
ones
are
you'll have
free.
to pay as well. So it's still a little bit of a wild west, but you know, to say that there's no charging network is not entirely true, and it is expanding.
Yeah, I know Nissan with the new Leaf has, they give, I think for the first year, free charging for various
That's a
partner
nice
networks
incentive.
in California and in the UK. I've read about stories there. There could be other places too. So again, it's not just Tesla. There are other manufacturers, maybe Bolt, Chevy's doing that too. I don't know. Maybe they have agreements somewhere, but they do give you some leeway. Again, too, it help you get into the EV.
Yeah,
Right?
well, I think, you know, like I said, most people think that the manufacturer should be doing it. Not necessarily. If you got third parties involved, I think it could be just as good. Yeah, as long as they keep the pricing, you know.
You don't see
Have a
Chevy
reality
pumping
check on
gas
the pricing.
anywhere, right?
Well,
They're not going to start
yeah.
doing that. They don't have any gas stations. So same kind of concept. I totally agree. But to give the supercharger network more media attention, let's dive into this. So there is still continued expansion here locally in Ontario. You want to talk about that in the GTA?
Yeah, the Greater Toronto area, we've seen no less than 4 of them, new supercharging stations open in the last month. So Sherway Gardens, if you're down in that area, in the Etobicoke area, that's just open. There's 20 of the new urban chargers, the 72 kilowatt units. Cambridge, Ontario has just opened as of about 2 weeks ago. I was down in that area and I used it myself. That one has 16 stalls. Markham just opened. That's 20 stalls in the regular Tesla units. And we're just waiting on Hamilton. Hamilton at the Lime Ridge Mall location, we're just imminently almost ready to go. And there's a few others too. And I was told that this is largely because Tesla knows the demographics of where all the Model 3 reservation holders are laying. So they're putting a huge amount of effort into building out the supercharger network in advance of the Model 3 coming, specifically for large urban areas that we have in GTA, because not everybody lives in a home. You know, people live in apartments and condos and stuff where they just can't necessarily easily install a charger. So Tesla is taking care of that through this kind of expansion. We're going to see even more. But if you take a look, we'll spend some more time on the iteration of the show as we go and try to report on more of the supercharger expansion to take care of
Because it's
people
definitely
looking for the
faster for
Model 3.
yours. But just to wrap up on the charging side, we brought a little demo of not a prop unit, it's a
it's an actual
functioning
working
unit.
unit.
So this is called
Tesla Tap.
the Tesla Tap.
Yep.
And basically for people that don't have a Tesla that want to utilize either the wall units or the destination chargers.
The destination
this will
chargers.
not work on a supercharger, but it takes your J1772 and that goes into your car.
So just remember, this is the end. This is a custom machined piece, and this takes the Tesla North American proprietary charger. This does not work in Europe, but the North American Tesla charger cable on this end from the wall connector, and it gives you a standard level 2 J1772, which will work in any EV or plug-in hybrid.
So Nissan, VW.
Exactly. So now you're not
Ioniq,
forced to
all of them.
necessarily use the public chargers that may
Not
be
Nissan.
out there. You can go to
Yes,
anybody
Nissan.
who has a Tesla connector.
Yep.
And I haven't tested it on the UMC, but I'm going to test this and see if it works with the UMC as well.
You're always a guinea pig on the show.
well,
so,
yeah, whatever.
you got to try it, right?
Cost $250 US, is that right?
Yep. About $269 or something like
Yeah,
that.
something
US,
like that.
$250. Yeah. So
We'll
not
put a
bad.
link in the show description if you're interested. So those
Yeah.
of you who may or may not be getting Tesla, have a wall connector, or going to destination charging locations, restaurants, hotels, that type of thing, that have a Tesla charger, well, this little doohickey will allow you to charge
And just
any
again,
car.
and remember, it's level 2. It will not work on superchargers,
No supercharging.
but it will work on
Supercharging is a different animal altogether.
all the other stuff that Tesla has. So great. Yeah. Continuing on the trend about that we're seeing the increase in electric vehicle adoptions, there were some numbers that came out summarizing 2017 sales. We're focusing on Europe right now because those are the first numbers that came out. But certainly, I think that the trend that we're seeing is that for the first time ever, that battery electric vehicles have surpassed, from an uptake perspective, rise plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. The battery electric vehicles were up almost 50% year over year, which is phenomenal. With Norway, of course, leading the charge. There's no argument there. And then
Good old
Germany,
Norway.
and then even with Germany's resistance, they were still up 117% year over year for adoption. And then UK and France were the other countries rounding that out. Just good to see. I mean, we knew that this was coming. You know, even a tipping point within the EV industry itself is occurring as we're seeing ranges increase, battery pack stabilization, more product being out there, more
Lower
choices,
costs.
lower costs,
Yeah.
all helping to spur that adoption. And then there were recently some Canadian EV sales numbers announced. I'm pretty proud to say that Ontario has taken the #1 spot, which I think is the first time from Quebec, because Quebec's been leading the charge for forever. And they're also our only ZEV province, if I'm not mistaken, right?
They are, yes.
Mandate province. So in Canada, overall plug-in sales were up 68%. And obviously, the provincial incentives in Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia help a lot to continue to drive that. But again, we're seeing that uptake that battery electric vehicles have surpassed plug-in hybrid electric vehicles as far as adoption. They were up almost 92% for battery electric vehicles year over year, and that's a phenomenal spike. Same reasoning, right? More product, the incentives are there, and probably 50% of that growth is battery electric, as we mentioned. And the #1 in Canada is the Chevy Bolt from a battery electric vehicle perspective, which was interesting. I didn't think that was going to be that model, but from a numbers it was. And so it's just good to see. And people ask us, we've had some recent, I know you did the video on the Ontario incentives,
yes,
and there were some people saying that they were against taxpayer money. But, you got to remember, folks, that if we want to spur EV adoption, we don't have cost parity yet. So there has to be something to incent people to get into that, to take the plunge when we know that it costs more upfront, as you mentioned, to buy that electric vehicle. And these incentives right now are one of the major ways to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the only way to get the ball rolling when something is, well, let's face it, more expensive. But after a while, when the costs come down on the vehicles and you have more choice, well, you don't need the incentives anymore.
So when we get some U.S. or other world numbers, we'll report on them, but that's what we've seen so far. But again, that trend seems to be consistent, that battery electric versions of EVs are now starting to overtake all the other EV types that are out there. Let's talk about some other models. So another manufacturers. We looked at the Nissan 2018, the new Leaf at the car show. Briefly, talked to one of their guys there. Of course, we won't get into a lot of specs on this show, but it is the new 40 kilowatt hour version. Now, the promising thing about that Leaf is that delivery started last month in North America, and there were over 19,000 pre-orders in Europe alone. The estimated global orders are going to hit probably 60,000, and that could be still even less than what it actually will be. Nissan's just inundated with orders and people lining up to buy the new Leaf, which is great. We want to see more adoption. It's got a decent range of 151 miles. I think value for pricing, it's very strong, especially when it gives you level 2 type autonomy with Pro Pilot Assist. It's got a 5-star safety rating in Japan. We don't know for North America, but we'll see. And we expect this to be a banner year for the Leaf. It's been slow because people were waiting for the new Leaf, as they do.
I was a little skeptical about the Leaf at first because when they first announced it, I didn't see as many changes. I figure, after 7 years, 8 years of making the car, you didn't change all that much. But actually seeing it in person, that changed my mind.
See it in person, and then when you start peeling away at it, it's got a lot of changes that are fundamental. And stay tuned. We'll get some more information on that as we go forward. Quick update on the GM Bolt. Overall production for the GM Bolt was just over 23,000 units for all of 2017 last year. It all comes from one plant in Orion, Michigan. There's been a lot of talk of people saying that the Bolt is just really a compliance car, so that's why they're not producing that many. That's not the case coming from GM CEO. They are stating that they're committed to continuing to grow their EV plans, and the Bolt is a leader there. So they're going to increase production in 2018, but they didn't give any numbers to what that is. And they've also launched, or they will launch as of March 10th, in just a few short days, a 2-seat version of the Bolt. They're calling it the Bolt Incomplete. It sounds like a song or something. Really? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
You can't think of a better name.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. But that's targeted at fleet customers, so you can get the Bolt with just the front 2 seats and then more cargo bay, and it comes with level floor so that you can for flower delivery guys or whatever you're going to use it for, that you can buy them there at a bit lower price. GM also wants to work with the energy industry providers to boost existing 17,000 chargers in the U.S. We don't know what that means. Are they willing to throw money at it? Hopefully, we'll see. I know lots of people that want to buy a Bolt.
There's a lot of them around here.
There's a 6. Yeah. Well, right now, if you were to order one today in March, you would probably get it August, September at this point. But even that's starting to get pushed out.
Yeah.
So there are people that have been waiting. There are a lot of people that want to get them.
And the people who have them really like them. My friend Marie just got hers, and she waited
shout out to Larry. Yeah. Big Larry. Yeah.
Yeah. But my friend Marie
Yeah.
just took delivery of hers. She loves it, but it took her 5 months to get the car from placing the order. So yeah, it's a little unfortunate. Should not take 5 months to get a car.
It shouldn't, and GM really should be wrapping production up on this big time because they have orders. So they have people lining up to buy these cars. Now, apparently in some states, like in some parts of California, there are vehicles sitting on the lot. So they've got some inventory.
Yeah, there is some disparity happening there
Yes.
because, we had a lot of reports, of course, where the dealers in the U.S. were getting a large assortment of them, and of course they'd filled all the orders. Now they're sitting on lots. But here in Ontario, we have such good incentives. People want the product, but yet we can't get it.
You can't even drive one.
Yeah,
Nobody
exactly.
has even a tester. So
Yeah, exactly. It's really tough. So, there's room for growth and for improvement there, and hopefully they'll come through because it is a good car.
except our friends at the EV Discovery Center, plug for them.
Yeah.
They have one.
Well, yeah, if you want to test drive one, that's the place to go.
Test drive a bunch. So moving on. So the big excitement, I think, from last week that I watched was the Jaguar I-Pace reveal from the Geneva Auto Show. We've been talking about it. We saw it at the car show. Yeah. We did a little interview there, which was great. Yeah, pretty well what you saw from a concept is what was delivered. Gee, that sounds familiar, doesn't it?
It's refreshing to see that. It's refreshing
to see that. Not some of these bazonker models that you never see the light of day.
Really?
Yeah, 90 kilowatt hour battery pack, 100 kilowatt DC fast charging at this point. EPA range of 220 miles, 386 kilometers, a 5-seat SUV. It's definitely not a crossover. It's a little bit bigger than that. So it gets into the more smaller SUV, small to mid-size SUV market.
It's a good market for them to attack first.
Excellent
with this
market.
Because this is the largest growing market there is on the planet.
Especially in North America, but I think even in Europe too, because that size, it's not like a big Tahoe or something where it's going to be hard to park and maneuver,
Europe,
right?
I would see it's hard to justify an S or an X because they're such large cars. But this one, I think they've done a good job on getting the size just right for you.
It's smaller than an S, right, lengthwise.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't look at the specs, but 5-seat, a dual motor, all-wheel drive comes with it, 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds, so pretty quick. The good thing is they started production, so even in that reveal, they were into the plant and showing people working on the cars that they were already starting to build these. And we were told at the auto show that we should start seeing them in showrooms, at least in North America, this summer, if not sooner. So we're chomping at the bit to get our hands in one.
Hey guys at Jaguar, if you're
please
reach out,
email us.
We want to test drive this thing.
And the good thing, I thought the pricing was a little higher, but you corrected me today that the starting price has been announced from a USD perspective at $69,500. That's going to put it pretty competitive.
Well, that's before options, so keep that in mind, right? It's like
before
the
options.
mythical $35,000 Model 3.
Yep.
By the time you add your options on this, and of course, that's where the manufacturers make all their money is on the options. So you can load it up pretty quickly. But nice, they've done. I mean, if Jaguar knows how to do things, they've got a nice interior.
The interior was stunning, isn't it? I mean,
Tesla
it'd be nice to see it. Yeah, they do. It'd be nice to see it in person because it's minimalistic, but it's not that minimalistic. They take kind of a mid-range approach.
It's a little more conventional.
Yes.
I mean, I have no complaints. I like my Model X the way it is. It's great, but when you see something like this, it's like, okay. Nice.
Yeah, the fit and finish seems to be there. We'll have to wait and see in person, but if it's a Jag and that's what they're known for, Jaguar, and I got to make sure I pronounce that correct.
Depends on where you are.
Exactly. That's what they're known for. So stay tuned. Hopefully we'll get some coverage of that in the upcoming few months. More announcements. One from Hyundai. We mentioned this a few shows ago about their Kona Electric coming out. Well, they've now released it or announced it. The interesting thing about this compact SUV is that it's coming with 2 battery choices, and that's good. It'll give a broader range of consumers choice. Comes with either a 39.2 kilowatt hour battery pack or a 64 kilowatt hour battery pack. Nice. So it's going to compete maybe with a Leaf and with the Bolt. I mean, and the Model 3, it's kind of jumping all across the board from a range perspective. They're both going to come with up to 100 kilowatt DC fast charging enablement with 7.2 kilowatt onboard chargers. CCS combo EPA for the smaller battery choice of 186 miles or 300 kilometers and 292 miles, 470 kilometers for the larger version, and 0 to 60, 9 seconds. I don't have one on the bigger one, but let's say 9 seconds. Hey, you don't buy a compact SUV to race people anyway, as long as it gets you up the highway and you can pass somebody. Sales are starting later because they did not have the EV version at the auto show when we went, but they were telling us it was coming in the summer and the fall. that sales were going to start, and that starting price is around $39K US. So that seemed to be in line with your compact SUVs.
It should be
market.
very efficient because if they're using the same battery in the drivetrain that they developed for the Ioniq, this should go.
Which I believe they are. I think
it doesn't surprise me because they were able to iterate on this fairly quickly. So that tells me that they've reused a lot of the stuff. I mean, I've noticed even some of the switchgear inside the car when I sat in it was the same as the Ioniq. So
is it the same platform? Do you think?
it's very close. A lot of these car manufacturers all do that. They
Yep.
take the same platform, they jigger it a little bit, come up with another car. And of course, this is the SUV market. This is the small crossover market. So it makes sense that they would do that.
And staying with Kia, they're going to upgrade their Soul or update their Soul EV model as well this year. There's a third generation coming. Won't come out to the second half of calendar year. It's going to be based on the Kia Niro Hyundai Kona platform. No surprise there.
Yeah.
So it looks like it might be a little bigger. May use the same battery packs as well as the Kona, and if that's so, it'll give it at least a range of 186 miles or 300 kilometers. No other info yet. I know the Kia Soul, I mean, it's done okay. I mean, this year's numbers in the U.S. Have only been 250 units, so I think people, because just the range, it's getting outranged. And for the price point, you could spend a little more and get into a Leaf or a Model 3 or
it's tough when you
much
cross
more
shop
selection.
some of these cars.
i3,
because,
yeah. So it's starting to lag, so it was time for an update.
Yeah, well, the older models kind of suffer from that because if they don't update them and you got the newer stuff coming out, people cross shop them and then they just kind of fall off the planet. So
Volvo has announced their XC40, all battery electric vehicle version, to be available next year with an EPA range of 186 miles. Boy, that number is popping up a lot today.
Yeah.
300 kilometers. Again, it may use batteries from another vehicle. Oh, I didn't put some more information, but that's about all the information we had at this point in time. They just did a quick blurb that they're announcing this. No pricing, just that it's coming in 2019. Stay tuned for more.
It's good to see.
Volkswagen, we've talked about the ID plenty times show. They finally announced something in Geneva just a couple of days ago called the Vision. It's a bit of a concept, but I think the mechanics of it is what we should be looking at, which is the battery and drivetrain. I think that's the important takeaway here, where they've announced a 111 kilowatt hour pack dual motor. That's a weird number that they came out with, but I guess it's better than 100, right? If you're trying to beat somebody, somebody with a T logo. Estimated NEDC range of 413 miles. That would be roughly, 300 miles in EPA?
Yeah, probably between 250 and 300.
250 to 300 miles, so you can convert that to kilometers. Now, it's based on the all-new MEB platform. We've talked about that before. All the IDs are coming out starting in 2019. They're starting with the smaller unit. I think the Vision is going to hit production in 2022. But it's neat to see that Volkswagen is really starting to throw serious money. In fact, one of the predictions or statements I read from VW is that they plan by either 2020 or 2022, I forgot what date, that they plan on producing 1 million all-electric vehicles a year. That's a huge statement for them to make. I mean, they've got a hole to dig themselves out of, and this is a step in the right direction.
Yeah. I'll just say this. Volkswagen likes to do a lot of these concepts. I want to see an actual car. I'm tired of the concepts now. They've been, the Buzz E, the little minibus, and the ID, the small little golf competitor. I mean, let's go, guys. Let's get some product on the market and stuff.
It's coming.
And you're right. They have to dig themselves out of a hole. And I'll just mention this: if you happen to have a Netflix account, there's a new show that was just produced, and it's called Dirty Money, and it talks about the whole Dieselgate scandal. Oh my God, does it ever go a lot deeper than we ever imagined? So anyways, I'll leave it like that. Go look at it and make your own decisions from there.
I believe, though, the product that Volkswagen will give out, and the EGolf is a good example of that. It's a great product. It's just very limited. You can't find one now, and it's kind of a stopgap until this ID platform really gets out, because that's where they're going with it. And we'll start seeing that smaller model come out at the end of next year, from what I've heard from VW. So definitely there'll be a competitor in the EV market space, and what they build will be really good. But they do really need to step it up and get it going. So let's hope we can get our hands on something tangible in the next few months or a year or whatever. Let's see what happens. And Infiniti has joined the ranks of the EV marketplace by announcing their Q Inspiration all-electric offering. No really specs. There's a cool picture of it. Looks like it's in the Salt Flats, right, in Nevada, if I got that right.
Yeah.
Scheduled to be on sale for 2021. No other specs, but it'll be probably really nice. Infiniti is an upper brand like Jag and Jaguar and others. They're going to want to put something nice out there. Based on just looking at the concept, I think it's going to have a fairly hefty battery. It looks like a Model S type length or scale from a size. We'll have to wait and see. But good to see that people are getting into it. Mm-hmm. So let's get the mailbag.
Oh, mailbag. Love mailbag. What do we have on tap?
Just a couple things today. We have a question from Artur. He lives in the UK. Thank you for sending in your email. He asks a bit of a question that if two people, so you have one Model 3, and him and his wife both have smartphones, and they both have the keys programmed on their phones, and they're kind of walking together to get into the Model 3. What's the Model 3 going to do from a decision on whose profile to load and that kind of stuff? It's an interesting scenario.
Oh, that's a good question. It's not something I've been able to test. It hasn't even crossed my mind. I've had access to Model 3 many times now, and it hasn't even crossed my mind. I would just believe that if both approach the car at the same time, that it will just take a priority and just unlock the car. If there's any Model 3 owners out there in the U.S. who have had this, please write in. Let us know. We'd like to report on that.
Good question. Thank you. We have a question from Eric from Texas. Thanks, Eric, for sending in the question. He was just more concerned about the safety of the Model 3 and what we feel the Model 3 scores will be when the NHTSA, NHTSA, when they finally come out with their crash tests, when that's going to be. First of all, usually it's about a year or so after launch.
Well, in the case of the Model X, it was almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years.
Yeah, those numbers. Well, to go back, and I'm just going to parrot what Tesla has said, that we fully expect to see 5-star crash rating in every category. I do believe at Tesla, if they have a white wall, I'm sure they do, when they write out all the things that they want with their cars, that safety is probably right at the top, if not the topmost item. So I fully expect Model 3 to reach the same thing, exactly what Tesla said, 5-star category, or rating in every category.
And the ratings, to generalize this, should be relatively high for most, if not all, of the electric vehicles, especially the battery electric vehicle manufacturers, because one thing you do get from the skateboard design that Tesla's architected and even Nissan Mailbag is that worthiness, right? Yeah. That more stiffer worthiness. You can play around with alloys a little bit easier and make safer, stronger safety cages, and that's one of the inherent benefits of an electric drivetrain platform.
Yeah.
Is
the more manufacturers copy the Tesla skateboard design, much like the Volkswagen MBB platform we were just talking about, or the Jaguar I-Pace, you're going to see these safety ratings go up because now you have crumple zones on both ends, and you have a large, stiff, dense battery pack on the bottom, which really resists side impacts.
So thank you for the questions. And we just had one last, it's not really a question, it was just some response we got when we ran from the last show the story about the Tesla scandal, that article in Germany. And it was just kind of, a gentleman sent me along, Michael in Germany. Thank you very much for sending this. And there was Patrick as well that I got information from. I want to shout out to you guys. Thank you for sending that. But basically, I won't get into a lot of the details, but from the reality, when you pull the skin back on this, it was really, there was accusations of suspected fraud by Tesla, but nothing's been proven and nothing's going to court. And basically, Tesla has been banned from being eligible for any rebates anyway by the German government. So the whole article was a bit of just kind of a National Enquirer-ish type of approach, just to get some airtime, clickbait a little bit. And, there were suspected things that Tesla, could not honor the pricing points that they did, but apparently they did. They sent somebody a car that was worth a little more just to honor it. So it goes back and forth. But we do want to thank you guys for updating us with all that information and sharing that with us. And of course, if you have questions on Tesla or anything else, again, we do talk about things other than Tesla on this show, and we will continue to expand our outreach on the show. Please send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. And we've reached the end of the show. So
the best ways to reach us, if you want to reach us for mailbag or just general inquiries or tips or whatever, you want to reach out for product, because we'd like to do some product reviews as well, so as we get some more stuff. You can reach us at m3ocshow@gmail.com, although that email address may change going forward.
Stay tuned for that.
We'll still monitor it, so you can always send there. You can follow me on Twitter, and the handle's at Model 3 Owners.
And I'm at Kenneth Bocor. Now, your Twitter may change as well. You may add another Twitter?
No.
You're gonna
I love my Twitter.
That?
I may add another account, but I love my Twitter account. Yeah.
Cool.
Don't forget, check out the forum at Model3ownersclub.com. We also have a page on Facebook. You can just search for Model 3 Owners Club. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We appreciate all of our subscribers, and of course, that's the only way we can grow this show. So please make sure you click the share and the like and the subscribe button, and don't forget the little bell notification, so every time we put out a video, you get instant notification. Yeah. And lastly, to keep the show going, we would appreciate if you take a look at our Patreon page. You can find that at patreon.com/Model 3 Owners Club, and all of those Patreon supporters keep the show going. We really appreciate all of you for your continued support.
Very much so. And as we said at the top of the show, we're going to look to expand, rebrand just this component, this show alone, and extend our outreach into more areas of the EV world. So any of these things, subscriptions and Patreon, are much appreciated as we look to grow this out. So thank you very much for those who have.
I'm going to put one last thing at the end of the show, and it should have been at the top, but we'll put it in here at the end. Ken and I are very involved with electric vehicle societies and different groups and so on and so forth. So if you have a club, or you have a school, or a social club, or any one of these public things that want to know more about EVs, and you live in the Greater Toronto area, send us an email and reach out to us. We'll gladly come out and do a presentation and talk about EVs in general. We have access to cars, of course, and you can take a look at the cars for yourself. So anyways, we'll leave it at that.
For sure. Yeah, we love to do that. We've done that. We certainly want to grow that. And I'll do preface that, agree with you, that kind of keep it in the GTA-ish, maybe SWO for now, because we both have real jobs that we work day by day, and to try to go somewhere. And we were invited to one of the Midwestern states for something this year, and just unfortunately it's a bit too far, and the timing, it's hard for us to get out with our real full-time jobs. But we do thank you. So definitely keep us in mind for that. And that's a wrap. Another show is in the can.
That's right.
So
Thanks for watching, folks. We'll catch you on the next one.
See you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.